just to kind of wrap things up, we've talked about usability. We've talked about some of the elements. As a marketer and as somebody who's responsible for helping to create a website, you need to balance the design of the site, the usability of the site, and as a subset of this usability, the content of the site. You can't let any one element dominate the other two. If you do, you're going to just impact all three of them. So you can make interesting, exciting, whiz-bang sites, but if they're not usable, they're not going to be affected to your they're not going to be affected to your business goals. You can make sites that have all the content you need, but are boring as hell. That's not going to be effective. Go for the best balance of usability, aesthetics, design, and content. And this is where bringing in experts in the three different fields and getting them in a room, possibly locking the door and throwing away the key until they come up with something good, is your best practice. Because Carlos back here is our aesthetics guy. He also does some of our tech, but he's the aesthetics guy. We have a copywriter who has strong opinions. And we like his strong opinions because he's a hell of a good copywriter, but strong opinions. And then we have me, who's the web guy, who wants the site that gets the best response. Working as a team, you come up with something that's usable, has good content, has good design, and accomplishes your goal. Having just one person do it, and you're going to go too far down one path or the other. So keep that in mind. Work as a team. Nobody can do this by themselves. I know because I've tried. You need to work as a team and bring in the different experts to get the best site. It's no longer the 90s where you can go out, fire up front page, create a site, and oh, you're rocking. WordPress makes website building easier, but it also gives you chances to really make ugly websites. So just because it's easy to build a website now doesn't mean it's easy to build a aesthetically pleasing, well-designed, usable website. Remember, at the end of the day, your website has to be designed with your users in mind and your business goals in mind. You get users to your website not just to throw you props about how beautiful the site is. You get users to your website to accomplish something there, to read, to download, to buy. But you need to keep that in mind. And different users, different sections of the buying cycle, different sites. Multiple devices are a fact of life now, designed for them. And finally, try to avoid the, ooh, it's shiny and exciting approach, and go with something that you think will have some long-term feasibility. So I have a couple of other slides that I've included here to fill in when we end a little earlier. Now, this is designed to be very comic looking. Okay, hang on just a second. Okay, so I took this out of another presentation that I was recording and forgot to strip the sound out. So this is supposed to be very comic looking to make it simple to really focus on what you're looking for. We have, and this is included in the presentation, we have tips, we have the elements, and then we have an actual comic looking site here. And it goes over a lot of what we've talked about. A visible logo, company tagline, easy to use navigation, breadcrumbs, easy to scan, descriptive headers. I like this one, be concise, no one cares about how much you can leverage your synergies. I just tattoo that on my forehead. Yeah, write for the audience, not yourself. But this kind of wraps up everything we've been talking about. and it calls it out. And this is from Dr. Byer's website. Again, it's a very useful graphic, but it's also designed to be kind of comic looking. Okay, Giacobbe Nielsen, the guy writes more than most of us talk. He's very prolific. He has a column on web usability, usability 101, and also top 10 mistakes of web design. And he's constantly writing to those. He's been writing books forever. Coordinating User Interface for Consistency, 1989 edition. It's really hard to find a copy of this book, but it's worth the effort. It is spun gold on paper. The last edition was published in 2002. It's excellent, distilled, very concise, just marching orders. And it was written when he was designing user interfaces for Sun text-based computers, no mouses, no visuals. It was very much being consistent from a text basis. And again, some of these are old, but this one, Designing Web Usability, still one of the best books. This one's really dated from 2001, and it's good for a laugh. But it talks about a lot of the elements here, but it talks about them in the 2001 web design era. Yeah. So if you can find something from Giacobbe Nielsen, it's worth the time to read it. Now, one word of warning. He's a curmudgeony old man. We are mentioning that our copywriter has strong opinions. Not nearly as strong as Dr. Giacobbe. He has a top 10 high profit redesign priorities when you're looking to rebrand, redesign your website and everything. Spend time working on your email newsletters. Take the time to create informative, useful, benefit-rich product pages. Use high-quality photography. There's another one I should tattoo on my forehead. Lori and I were working with this incredibly talented jewelry designer from Hawaii, and she still makes beautiful, interesting, intriguing, custom-made jewelry pieces. And then she gives a 5-year-old a webcam and tells him to take pictures of them. I mean, that's a little excessive, but the photography does not do justice to the actual product she's selling. And we talked to her about it, and she's finally kind of come to agree with us well after we've stopped working with her. But we were trying to do PPC campaigns for her, and it was just not really working because you would see these images that didn't compel you to buy. But then you would go to the news section and you'd see someone like Claire Danes wearing one of her things in a magazine, and it's like, ooh, that's cool, I want to buy it. I actually said that, ooh, that's cool, I want to buy it. Because the photography was really good in the magazine, not so much on the product pages. So invest in high quality photography. And if you're going to use stock photography, stock photography is a pretty good way to ensure your website can look like a lot of other ones. To use stock photography effectively, you need to put some time into finding the right image. How many people have seen the man with his hand on the shoulder of the woman at the computer image? And I've seen it used for computers, and I've seen it used for a company that sells sexual harassment avoidance training. Same image.
What do you do on the product photographs? I mean, we have all sorts of stuff on our website. Do you get someone to stage photos?
So service businesses are a tougher row to hoe. And you can use the stock photography, but again, you need to kind of go the extra mile and try to find what's the word I'm looking for? Stock photos that kind of give you the feeling of successful service, but may not necessarily be a straight metaphor. And as you go through your development process and your selection process, you do want to come up with a kind of overarching metaphor for the images you're choosing. For a company that sells search services, a metaphor might be a telescope, or a telescope, although way overused. But you can have variations on a telescope images throughout. It's tougher. And Carlos, how many rounds did we go through before we came up with the final images? And I know we went through like 2 or 3 on the phone, and I don't know how many you and Otis went through in the back end. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some of the ones he came up with we really liked, but we didn't like for what we were trying to sell, and others we just didn't get. And I'm sure some of our ideas, he's on the other end going, I'm writing this down, but we're never going to use it. So it's a very iterative process, and this is where a little design by committee can help. When you're doing design by committee, though, brainstorm, but then have one person who's ultimately responsible for making the decisions. Wave, Lori. You can have committees in form, but you need to have one person who ultimately that says this is what we're doing and kind of has the bigger vision. So knock on wood, next week look at BeasleyDirect.com, and you can also write back to us and tell us if you think we did a good job or if we should go back to the drawing board. Personally, I think I'm really excited about it. You can tell because I keep on mentioning it during the presentation here. But we're a service business. How do you make a nice image for doing PPC keyword analysis? You don't really. You need to come up with a metaphor. So, not a simple answer, but I think a fairly thorough one. Yeah, Rocco. Yeah, a company Rocco used to work for does product design services. And so, yeah, you can have hero shots of the products they designed, which can be helpful. But are they selling the products they designed, or are they selling the brain power that went into designing them and the teamwork? And so they have some really powerful images of actual guys who worked there, not just male models, figuring out things around a table and the value of it. And it's just, yeah, it's powerful. You see actual real people working on the client's problems and fixing it. So a couple other things to look at when you're doing a redesign. Differentiate yourself and do good comparisons to your competition. Allow for drill down and reordering of content in the navigation. Amazon's very good at this. You can say, oh, I want only Prime shipping, and I want only products from these companies. And you can just kind of narrow down what you're looking at in the navigation. Cater to seniors. That's a little reflective of Dr. Nielsen's failing eyesight. But if your audience is an older audience, keep it in mind. I used to work for a company that catered to the first wave baby boomers. And this was in the 90s and around the turn of the century. So our entire site design was around something that was more user-friendly for maybe eyes that weren't quite as good as they are now, or they were in their youth. Um, mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, and if you guys watch when I check the email after the phone, after the presentation, it's going to be some of this. Um, okay, have search involved and do some user testing, even if it's the kind of automated user testings like AttentionWizard.com or the ClickTracks or the heat maps. Do some user testing before you commit pen to paper. So, yeah. So I like blogs as a chance to demonstrate, what the hell you're talking about. And you're part of the discussion on a bigger stage than just worrying about selling product. So Beasley has a blog, and we've been pretty successful at it. And our success has been driven by, there's very little on the blog that's just about, how Beasley, how great we are. There are some, but it's mostly about, here are some trends in the bigger industry, here are some actionable ideas on how to work on things, but we're not doing so much of blowing our own horn. So that's where I really like blogs. It gives you an opportunity to demonstrate and establish credibility and authority. And that's where blogs are great. And it also, there are good reasons to have a blog from an SEO perspective, but beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, so Google Translate is a nice kind of stopgap, but generally you want to get a native speaker to do your translation. I had a client who wanted to advertise on Baidu in China in Mandarin. I took 2 years of Mandarin in college. I can order tea now, and I can ask for hot rice. And generally, I can make Chinese people snicker into their hands at my accent. I can read it a little more effectively, but not a native speaker by far. We use Google Translate to come up with some ad copy, and then we went out and we hired somebody to look at it and kind of riff off it and develop stuff that it really worked. And the person we hired was from Shanghai. He said, this will work really well in southern China, but if you go up near Beijing, which for those of you who don't know means northern capital, it's not going to work as effectively. And it's because China, big country, lots of different populations. And so he said, here's how you rewrite it. It was a couple character strokes. But even with my extensive background in Chinese language and culture, I would not have done it. And Google Translate gives you the very strict formulaic Wade Giles interpretation of Chinese. It's good if you're reading a page and you want to figure out what's on, but if you're doing something with marketing, yeah, spend the money and the time. Yeah. Localization. So just to kind of wrap up this, there's a story that I got in like Marketing 101 way back when I was still in college. It was talking about when Coca-Cola first went into China, and they said to their translator, "Give me the Chinese word that sounds like Coca-Cola." And so the translator didn't really think and just threw out the ideographs, and it sounded like Coca-Cola in Mandarin. And then another person looked at it and started laughing. The word they wrote down, which sounded like Coca-Cola, literally translated to bite the head off the frozen tadpole. Not good. Chevy Novas. The name Nova is not a really great thing in South America. All kinds of stories you can get like this where just literal translations just fall flat. And even if you go English to English, what do we call a vacation out here? We call it a vacation. In England, they call it a holiday. Cigarette, fags, all kinds of, and that's just American English to UK English. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and if you go to the East Coast, are they Puerto Rican? Are they Cubano? Are they from Guatemala? Are they from South America? Are they from Mexico? I mean, there's just all kinds of pitfalls you can avoid if you spend the time and effort to find a native speaker who's familiar with your industry and who's native speaker in the part of the country you're targeting. And it's not just Chinese and Spanish, it's French and German, and yeah. So that about wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, there is my contact information. Lauren, myself, and Carlos, we all offer these workshops not just because we like to do it to get the visibility, but because we like to educate people. It gives us a bit of a rush. And it's not bad for business either, be honest about that. But we like the education. We figure rising tide floats all the boats higher. So drop me an email, give me a call. I can answer any specific questions that might pop up. And don't forget to fill out your surveys and tip your servers. Thanks again, everybody.